big for me anymore. You know, like it used to be a few months at a time before I was up here, but last time it was like 3 weeks, you know, since the last time I yelled at you. I'm starting to think you guys might actually like it when I yell at you, but you know, we'll see how it goes. But seriously, I'm glad you guys are here, and I'm glad to be up here again. I love doing this, and any opportunity that presents itself to me where I get to yell at you, if I can, I'll take it. Just throwing that out there. But my name's Evan, if you don't know me, and I'm on staff here at Eastside as part of our facilities team, so I fix things, and I help out as part of our teaching team here at Ethos, if you couldn't tell by me being up here all the time. And if you're new here or haven't heard me speak, like, don't worry, I don't actually yell at you, kind of. I just have a tendency to get very excited, so like, we'll play it by ear this week, all right? All right. But before I jump into the message and the series this week, I just want to give a huge shout out to all those folks out there who came out to support me and to support this community. I get to co-lead an awesome group of high school senior guys. A few of them showed up tonight. My men's group that I've been a part of for a few years showed up. They're out. I think I heard them over there somewhere. And I have family that flew out here from Arkansas to be here tonight. They're out here too. And I have friends on the other side of the screen, so I just want to say thank you to everyone and all those in between those circles of friends and family. Just thank you for being out here. There's a lot of you, so pressure's on. So back in March, my roommate and I, Jake, and he's here tonight too, we did this thing, right? We decided that we want to do something super crazy that we've never done before. We really wanted to go on like this adventure of a lifetime, right? And it was nothing that we've ever done before, right? We were both really excited about it, and we were both really scared. And we decided to climb a mountain. More specifically, Mount Baldy. Now, for those of you who don't know anything about Mount Baldy, I'm just going to fill you in really quick. It's about an hour and a half drive north of here, so it's fairly close. The summit is 10,064 feet high, and the hike can be very dangerous when it's covered in snow, which is when we went, and it can be even more dangerous when it's really windy, which is also when we went. People literally die on this hike all the time. It's a real thing. People die. Okay, and here's a quick picture of us during the climb. That's me in the front right here. That's Jake in the back, and that's just the awesome view that we have during the hike. And that was like an 8-hour hike. It was nuts. Okay, now in this photo, it may be hard to tell, but it was 14 degrees with 35-mile-an-hour winds. Oh. I can say it one more time. 14 degrees with 35-mile-an-hour winds. That means the wind chill was negative 28 degrees. Okay, frostbite is a real thing. I experienced it. And people have died on this hike in conditions that weren't nearly as bad as they were for us. But we couldn't have been more excited about it. Neither of us have ever hiked this hike before. Okay, so we literally had no idea what we were doing. And there was a point during the hike that we had to stop where we were and we admitted to each other that we had no idea where to go next, because we didn't know. There was no one else to ask or anything. And we kind of looked around, scoured the area for any idea, any sign of hope for what we could do, because we wanted to finish it. And we noticed something on the ground that could help us, and actually it gave us a bit of hope. We found some footprints in the snow. Now, we had no idea where the footprints came from. There was only one set going one way, so maybe the guy didn't come back. I don't know. But when we saw the footprints, we came to the realization that if we wanted to do this hike, we had to ditch the idea that we could do this hike by ourselves, and we had to follow someone else, even if we didn't know who that else was. We both reasoned that if we wanted to get to where we wanted to be, we had to follow the footsteps, not because it was a good option, but because it was our only option. We had to stop thinking that we could be our own guides and allow ourselves to be guided. I mean, neither of us had avalanche training. Neither of us had any kind of mountaineer training of any kind. We literally just bought gear and said, let's go climb a mountain and go up. You know, and that's the kind of stuff that type 7s on the Enneagram do. So if you know, you know. If you don't worry about it. So we took off and we followed the footsteps. No idea where it was taking us. But the craziest part was it took us almost directly to the summit. And we didn't know that from the start. We chose to follow some footsteps from some dude that we never saw. There wasn't even anyone else on the hike. Jake and I were the only people on the mountain. Like, we didn't see anyone going up. We didn't see anyone going down. We had no idea where the footprints came from. But it wasn't necessarily because of the presence of the footprints that we were able to find our way. It was our active decision to follow the footprints that ultimately allowed us to get us to where we wanted to be. Now, I tell you that story because if you were last week, then we heard that if we want new life, we have to have new habits. And that new habits eventually lead to a better outcome on life, which is so true. But oftentimes, I think we forget where habits come from, the ones we choose to make. We don't pause and take time to reflect on any of that. And the reason that we should reflect on our habits is because there are a lot of bad habits to follow and there are a lot of good habits to follow. And even if we choose to reflect and we decide that the habits are good, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're great habits or that they're the best habits. And oftentimes we follow things that are good, but not the best. Our habits that we choose to make come from the things and people that we choose to follow. Which means that the things and people we choose to follow can almost directly determine the outcome of our life. And I don't know who or what you're choosing to follow, but with the rise of social media and the internet in general, I don't think our society has ever been so pressured to follow people. I mean, there are so many options for us and so many people out there. We could follow just about anyone, right? We could follow celebrities, we could follow comedians, bands, singers, dancers, political leaders, food junkies, spin class cycle instructors, meal planners, Twitch streamers, motivational speakers, financial planners, our parents, our friends. Heck, people even have pages for us to follow about their pets. You know, right? It's just about anyone you could follow. Right? But the interesting part about me is when I look at these is that a lot of them keep inviting us to follow us on their journey, whatever that journey may be. And we follow them without ever stopping to consider if it's a good thing or if it's a good thing, if it's the best. Because even good things could be roadblocks in our life. And I don't know why it is that we would ever settle for anything less than the best, but the only thing I could come up with is that the best requires sacrifice. Always. It requires sacrifice of our current life in exchange for a future life that we have no idea what it would even look like. I mean, think about it. Whenever you've made a decision that required sacrifice, what changed? When you decided that you're going to be diligent about going to the gym and you did, what part of your schedule did you sacrifice? What about the new diet plan that you made that you decided that you're going to stick to and you did? What favorite foods did you sacrifice? When you decided to quit smoking, what did you sacrifice? When you quit your old job to pursue a new opportunity with a new, different company, what did you sacrifice? What about when you packed up your bags and moved across the country to be here? What did you sacrifice? Or when you finally decided to end a toxic relationship that was poison to you, what did you sacrifice? When you finally decided to follow a different set of footprints, what did you sacrifice? Sacrifice isn't easy, I get it. It's uncomfortable and sometimes it sucks, right? But it calls us out of our current and comfy living situation into hopes of a better life. I know. I once quit my job to pursue an unpaid internship, right, for 5 months. And for those 5 months, I lived without a stable income, and I had rent to pay. Okay, that sucked, right? But here's the thing. We won't find a better life if we don't follow better footprints. Thanks. And usually following better footprints means sacrificing something, and when we neglect to sacrifice something, it inhibits our ability to become something other than we are now, and we give up everything. In Matthew chapter 19, there's this really wealthy young man who comes up to Jesus and he starts talking to him about how he wants eternal life and what he could do more and what he could do better in order to receive that eternal life. It says in verse 18, this is Jesus speaking to him. He says, "You shall not murder, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not steal, you shall not give false testimony. Honor your father and mother, and love your neighbor as yourself." "All these I have kept," the young man said. "What do I lack?" Jesus answered, "If you want to be perfect, go, sell your possessions, and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me." When the young man heard this, he went away sad because he had great wealth. He went away sad. And that's the last you ever hear of the young man in the whole Bible. He's never mentioned again. It seemed as if he didn't sacrifice what he had to in order to be in a relationship with Jesus. And here's the thing you have to know about this passage. Okay? Being wealthy isn't a bad thing, and Jesus knows that. Okay? Being rich isn't inherently bad. He wasn't condemning the guy for being rich because the problem wasn't his wealth. The problem was that he was letting his wealth take the place of his relationship with God. His identity became so entwined with being rich and being wealthy that became the problem. And when he was told that what he needed to do was get rid of that part of his identity that inhibited him from knowing God and being in a relationship with him, he backed out. He got scared and said no. He was too scared to make that sacrifice. And if we want a relationship with Jesus, to follow in his footsteps, it demands sacrifice. It demands it. And it demands sacrifice because Jesus literally became sacrifice so that we could have the relationship with him, so we could have the opportunity to follow in his footsteps. But you have to give something up. And it's not just a one-time thing. It's not a one-time sacrifice. Following Jesus is an everyday kind of thing. He tells you to pick up your own cross because that is exactly what he did. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 38, he says, "Whoever does not take up their cross and follow me is not worthy of me." Listen, I'm not telling you to follow Jesus, nor am I asking you to follow Jesus, okay? I don't want that to be the point. I want to remind you that this is what it takes to follow Jesus. It's something that we have to do if we want to make this decision on a daily basis. And I think that when these obstacles, when our identity becomes wrapped in different things other than him, we often look to God and ask him to remove the things that inhibit our relationship with him, when in reality, he's asking us to give it to him. He's asking us to make that sacrifice and to sell our possessions. The wealthy man was asking what else he had to do in order to be in a relationship with God, and when he was told what he needed to do, he didn't want to do it. He didn't want to sell his possessions. The whole picking up your cross and sacrificing daily, it's something that I've struggled with for a good portion of my life and often still continue to. And for those who don't know me well, I have a huge passion for music, specifically and exclusively metal. Okay, I got into metal when I was about a sophomore in high school. I haven't looked back since. Right, I love it. It's one of my favorite things to talk about: going to concerts, the musicians I've met, band history, discography, everything. I love it. I absolutely love it. Okay, and it was a community that I actively engaged with and took part in. It was, in all aspects, my identity. I was the friend who was into metal, okay? I feel like we all have that one friend. I was that friend, okay? And it was definitely who I thought I was. And if you don't know this about metalheads, that's what they're called, metalheads. They have two hairstyles. It's one or the other. They have either really long hair or no hair at all. There's really no in between, okay? And if this was 6 months ago, you would have seen me walking around this place with like mid-chest length hair. Okay, it was pretty long. And there's a quick picture of me with my long hair if you don't know what it looked like. That's a really great photo of my hair. That photo, by the way, was taken last year in Hume Lake. So if you're planning on going with the Ethos crew, just be prepared for this. I might make a comeback. But since that photo has been taken, my hair has been since cut, right? And for you, it may not be a big deal to cut your hair, but for me, when I cut my hair, it hadn't been that short in 10 years. And the reason to cut it wasn't an easy one for me. Most people don't actually know the real reason I cut it. It wasn't because it was getting hard to manage or the knots were the devil. No, it wasn't easy for me because of how much of my identity I personally found in my own hair. Because remember, you either have long hair or no hair, and I had long hair. And that might sound weird to you, but cutting my hair was something that I felt like I had to do because of how much I associated with my music and how much of my music that I associated with my identity. It was part of who I thought I was, and who I thought I was becoming the roadblock in the way of who I was to become. For me, when Jesus said, sell your possessions, when he asked to let go of what I'm holding on to, so I could hold on to the relationship he wanted me to have, he asked me to cut my hair and to let go of the identity that I found. It's a battle that I currently fight all the time, and it's a cross that I continue to carry every single day. And even though it's hard and that these footsteps I choose to follow may be a hard one, and it's a path covered in snow and there's wind and it sucks a lot of the time to crawl through it, but I could walk in confidence knowing that it's the best path I could ultimately take because I know it will take me where I want to be. And I know this kind of sacrifice is something that we all struggle with. There's a lot of fear involved with it, and that's okay. Letting go of things we've held onto for so long is really, really hard. I get that. So I want to encourage you. I just want to encourage you to try and find that one thing in your life, just one thing that you think might be that thing that Jesus is telling you to sell your possessions, to get rid of that roadblock of what's inhibiting you. And I know what I'm asking you is to do something pretty big, and that's going to be a big challenge, and it might be scary too. But find that one thing and cut it. Just cut it. Whether it's an actual physical possession that you need to get rid of or sell, or a relationship you need to ditch, or a job is in the way, or your location, or a hobby, Jesus has invited us to follow in his footsteps, to become something more than we thought we could ever be. And I can tell you that because I've been part of that process and am still carrying that cross today. Okay, it's not easy, but following Jesus never has been. It's actually the hardest thing you'll ever do in your life because it's not a one-time thing. It's something you have to commit to every single day in your life, but it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in your life. You move from who you are into who you can become. Find the footsteps. Find the ones worth following. And move away from what you are into who you can become. Will you guys pray with me?